there, my name is Irene, and in this video we are going to be talking about Sketchup section. One very handy tool that is going to allow us to take our 3D models from just pretty into construction documentation settings. So let's get to it. Alright, so let's say that you are done building your model and now you would like to put together a presentation, put some dimensions, create construction documentation out of it. So the thing is that the way that SketchUp works by default, it's not very conducive to this. If I come here and I turn off my 3D ceiling and my light, let's say that I want to do a floor plan, right? So if I go to a top view, this doesn't really look like floor plan. Sometimes you can show something like this to clients if they're having a very hard time understanding what a floor plan is, but it's not very helpful because this is more like a dollhouse view. It's not really good for annotating and it's just not a floor plan. Now you could use the tool of parallel projection, which we learned in a previous video, to get rid of that perspective effect. And then now we're getting a little bit closer to what's a floor plan, but this is still not really a floor plan. The main reason is that I can't see some details, right? Like my wall is blocking some of my details. Like for example, I have windows here, they're supposed to be like not doorways, but like openings here, and I'm not seeing any of this information. So the reason is because in a floor plan, you are supposed to be seeing those things. So how can we fix this? Well, we're gonna fix it with sections. So I'm gonna switch back to my regular perspective and I'm actually gonna turn everything back on, because the nice thing about a perspective is that it's gonna get rid of this situation where you need to be hiding and unhiding stuff in order to be able to see in your model. So where are we gonna find this perspective? Well, it depends. Option 1, in your large tool set, you're going to find this button here, which is going to allow you to create a section plane. Now, I don't really like this setup here because it doesn't give me enough options. There's more options for sections that I cannot see if I'm just working with the large tool set. Option 2, you could go to Tools, and you're going to find your section plane once again here. But once again, we have this limitation that it is just giving me the option of creating a section plane. I want to be able to edit that section plane. So the best way to work with sections in SketchUp is going to be by right-clicking on empty space to open your list of tools, or you can also go to View, Toolbars, and then turn it on. I'm just going to do it here. So I'm going to right-click and we're going to turn on the section tool here. And it's this little guy here. So see, this is why I prefer to work with this guy instead of this button or the tools, because I get 3 additional buttons that are going to allow me to control the properties of this sections that I'm going to be creating. So I'm going to lock it here and we're going to start pretty basic. We're going to start by creating a section. So we're going to do that with the section plane button. So I'm going to click this guy here. And you're going to see that it's basically giving me this plane, right? And you can see that it has these little bubbles with a little arrow. So the arrow, I don't think I can put it close enough, so I'm just going to leave it there and I'll zoom in and edit. The arrows basically indicate which direction the section is going to be cutting on. So remember, the idea of a section is that, I always like to describe buildings like cake. So the idea of a section is that you're taking this cake and you're making a cut in the cake and you're getting rid of half of that cake, right? So the arrow is indicating which side of the cake you're going to be looking at. So if your arrows are looking down, then that means that anything that is beneath the section will be visible and anything that is above that section will basically disappear. We will get rid of. The other thing that I want you to notice is that your section plane is going to be very jumpy. And this is because basically it is picking up on the direction of whatever surfaces it touches on. So see, for example, if I put it on this wall, it is becoming aligned with my green axis. But if I put it here, it becomes aligned with the blue one. And if I put it here, it becomes red. When you see orange, then that means that it is aligning with a plane that is neither red, green, or blue. But same as when you're working with your move command or your line command or any other command, you can also control the direction of your plane. And it's going to be the same arrow keys. So right arrow key to align your plane with red, left for green, up for blue. So if you're finding that your model is making your section plane jump all over the place, use the arrow keys to constrain it. So I'm going to start with a top view because basically I want to create a floor plan because, and this is very important to understand, basically all construction views are sections. It's just that they're in different directions and they have different capacities. A floor plan is a section that is horizontal. Same thing with a ceiling plan. Even an exterior elevation, like a facade elevation, is still a kind of section. It's just that you're cutting outside of the building, but you're cutting through the earth, and that's why you see that the earth hatch when you have exterior elevations or facade elevations. So all of my views that are construction views are created with the section plane. So I'm gonna click on my model just to place my section, click, and now it's gonna give me this prompt so I can name my section. Let's say I'm gonna call it floor plan. The symbol 1 is fine, and I'm just gonna click OK. And this is what we're getting. See, so you can see that one there. So this is the first very important thing to understand about creating a section plane. And that is the fact that you don't get to control how big it is. The section plane will be as big as it needs to showcase the entire geometry that is in the model. So for example, here I just have this space, but if I would have this in another building, my section plane would become big enough to cover all of them, because it's basically like I'm doing a laser through the entire world. Now, technically speaking, there is a way that you can get around this, which I'm going to show in a different video. But in general, it's not like I can use the scale command. See, like I'm trying to activate scale and nothing is going to happen because you cannot scale a section. It is as big as it needs to be to showcase the entire model. That being said, that does not mean that you cannot control sections. There's a couple things that you can do. So the most important one is that you can move your section. Right now, the section that I've created here is not very helpful to me. I can only kind of like peekaboo through my ceiling, but I can click on my section. So to click on your section, you may notice that it's almost like you have this orange border and this part here is like a little bit darker. That is indicating where your section plane is. So you can either click on that rectangle or you can click on the sphere with the symbol. Either way, when the orange becomes highlighted in blue, that means that you have selected your section plane. And then check it out. All I have to do is go M for move, click, and then move my cursor down. There you go. See? So this is going to allow me to create a more floor plan-y look-like view. That's a mouthful, because the idea here is that, again, in real life, a floor plan is actually a section that is going horizontally. In fact, they have specific heights if you want to like get hyper specific. I don't know if I can, it's not going to allow me to snap onto like my model. So you kind of have to eyeball it, but let's say that I'm going to put it, I don't know, somewhere like, let's say, do I want to put it very low? Sure, let's go very low just for demonstration purposes. So I could put it something like this, and then see, I am cutting through my windows, I am cutting through my passageways. This is giving me a view that is closer to what you would experience with a floor plan. Now, once I've done this, what I really like is that I can right click on my view and I can say that I want to align my camera to the view. Now here it's getting a little bit messed up because again of the extent of my section plane. There we go. And I can zoom in here and see. And if I switch to my parallel projection, now this looks a lot more like a floor plan. So this is how we create construction documentation in SketchUp. It's the mix of a section plane with parallel projection. Okay, so I'm going to skip on this and we're going to talk a little bit more. So you can also rotate a section plane, which is kind of cool. It doesn't have a lot of scenarios, but it is interesting. So let's say that I want to rotate it on red. So if I do this, I could do something like that. Now, again, this is not something that is an everyday case scenario, but for example, imagine that you're working with a building that has an A-frame. And, if you just do a traditional floor plan, most of your building is going to be covered by the projection of like the inclined walls. So in that case, you may choose to basically have your section aligned with the A-frame. It's pretty versatile, to be honest with you. Another thing that you can do with sections is you can flip them. So let's say that this is a floor plan section, but then let's say that, for example, I would want to do an RCP, a reflected ceiling plan. Well, in that case, I could right click on my section plane and I could click here to reverse it. And then this is going to reverse the view. So it's going to allow me to see my ceiling. I can also do this like if you are doing, for example, a north, south, east, west sections, you could flip back and forth between them. So let's switch back to reverse. Okay. So now that we have our section created, I want to talk about the 3 other buttons that come with your section tool. So after you've created your section plane, we can now play with these 3 other guys. So the very first one is going to allow us to turn on and off the display of the section plane. Basically, it's going to allow us to see the section plane itself. So by default, when you create a section, this guy turns on. But if I turn it off, you're going to see that it is going to hide the section plane, but it's not going to make it inactive. As you can see, I can still very much see the spaces that I am cutting through. So this guy should only be on when you are placing or modifying a section plane. You should not see your section planes in your regular views. So this guy only gets turned on if we need to do something with the section plane. On the other hand, this second button here is going to allow me to turn on and off the actual section. So if I turn it off, I basically go back to my regular model. And this is really nice because it means that you don't have to be hiding and unhiding or like deleting and recreating a section just because you want to continue working with the model. So I can turn this on, I can, do whatever I need to do. And if I need to go back to working with the entire model, I can just turn my section off. The final button is my absolute favorite, and it is called the section fill. So you may have noticed that the geometries that are being cut by my section are being filled with this black grayish color. So that is a section fill. This is super helpful. To give you an idea, before this tool existed, what I would have to do is when I would do my construction documentation in SketchUp, I would have to basically take the floor plans and elevations and whatnot, take them into Photoshop or Illustrator, and then manually fill them in. Nightmarish, hated it. So I absolutely love this guy. If I turn it off, basically this is going to allow me to see the fact that all of my geometry is hollow. And when I turn it on, it basically fills in those geometries that it is cutting through. Now, this is super important. This is one of those places where how well you make your geometry is going to come to bite you in the ass. So in my previous videos, I talked about when you're making complex geometry, you want to make sure that it is solid geometry and you want to make sure that you use groups and components. This is another place where you're going to see that that's going to matter, because look what's going to happen here. I know for a fact that my kitchen island here, I modeled it in a little bit of a hurry, so it's not great. And look what's going to happen when I move my section to it. So far, so good. Oh, okay. So this guy here is filling it in a little bit of a weird way. Actually, it's not looking too bad, to be honest. It's filling it really good. It might have been updated with the newest version of SketchUp. But if you work, for example, when I would work with older versions of SketchUp, when I would cut through this, it would not fill my island because it would basically detect that there's hollow parts. For example, here we have kind of like a filler, and then it's reading all of this as a single element. So again, for SketchUp to be able to recognize that it needs to fill in that geometry, it needs to read it as either a group or a component or a solid geometry. So this is why it's important to model things properly. I'm going to try to force it here just so I can show you the difference. So this guy here is going to be raw geometry. Yeah, there we go. That one is working fine. And then I'm going to make a copy. Let's do two. One of them. There you go. Let's delete that face and make this into a group and make this into a group. Then let's do this one here with a missing face. So if I turn my section again, there you go. This is what I wanted to show. So see, the two that are consistent are going to be read as a solid geometry. The ones where there is a face missing or something basically wrong, SketchUp may have a harder time on identifying them as this is supposed to be a solid geometry. Again, I think that with the newer versions of SketchUp, it has gotten much better at detecting when something is supposed to be solid fill. But if you are having any issues and something that should be detected as solid is not getting detected as solid, you have two options. Option one, you can go and fix the geometry. So for example, if I come here and I correct this, I build that face there and I turn this guy back on, see, now it is reading it as a solid. The other thing that you can do is you can right click on the section and you can come here to troubleshoot section fill. And see, this is going to highlight all of the places where SketchUp is detecting. Oh, you can actually see it here. See how it's seeing the inside of the chair? So this is telling me there are some points here that I don't really know what to do, and thus I am not going to be filling them in. See, especially with complex geometries, things like furniture, you're going to see that very, very often, okay? So I'm going to turn this off. And again, the idea is that you would want to go back and fix the geometry. And the troubleshooting is just kind of pointing out where the problems are, okay? But that section fill is one of my favorite things in the whole universe, okay? Now, the last thing that I would like to discuss is the fact that you can actually have multiple sections. So I'm going to turn my section back on here. I want to move it higher. Again, that was too low. Let's put it there. Okay, so let's say that I want to have my floor plan. So that's this guy here. And then let's say that I want to have another one that is going to be for my ceiling plan. So you can have as many sections as you want in your model. All you have to do is keep on creating them. So I'm going to go to my section again. And this time I'm going to come from the bottom, looking up, click. And this is going to be my ceiling plan. All right. Now, What you're going to notice here is that the moment that I created my second section, the first one became grayed out. So this is the one limitation of SketchUp, which is the fact that you can only have one active section plane at a time. It doesn't matter which one it is, but you can only have one of them. Now, that being said, there is a way to get around this limitation, and we're actually going to see that in a future video. But the idea here is that if you create a new section, any other section will become automatically turned off. So what happens if I want to go to my floor plan? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to double click, because basically double clicking in a section plane is going to make it active. So double click and I'm switching to my floor plan. Double click. Oh, double, there you go. Double click and I'm switching to my ceiling plan. See, I can jump in between them. All right. And again, I could have as many sections as I want. Let's say that I want to have an elevation. So I'm going to click here. There you go. Let's call this one elevation. Let's call it elevation main. I don't know. Let's go okay. All of them are 1. I should give them different numbers, but I'm lazy. So I'm going to move this guy here. This is another important thing. You get to decide where your sections stop, especially when it comes to elevation. So for example, for a kitchen design like this, you may want to have multiple elevations that are looking at the same direction. So for example, maybe I want to have one where I'm just looking at the cabinetry that is against my wall. And then maybe I want to have another elevation that is just looking at the island, right? So let's say that this one is going to be the one that looks just at my cabinets against my wall. So I could put it, for example, let's actually move it a bit more. So I'm cutting through the wall. There you go. That looks nice. See? So these could be one of them. And then I could come here and say, okay, now I want to see another one that is looking in the opposite direction. So this is going to be elevation. What is the name? It has an oven microwave. There you go. And same thing as before. Again, orange is going to be the active one. So I'm going to move this guy. And again, let's say that I don't want to look at the island. I just want to look at the wall-mounted cabinetry, right? So I could put this guy, let's put it there, right? So that's my second elevation. Now, let's say that I want to have 2 more elevations that are just focusing on the island. So I could come here and say, okay, so this is going to be my elevation island breakfast, because we have a little breakfast bar. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to select this one here and I'm going to move, let's say I'm going to put it there. And then I want to have another elevation that is looking at the island, but from this other side here. So I could come here. Ooh, my SketchUp is freezing a little bit. And let's say that this is going to be my elevation island front. There we go. Okay, so now I can come here. Ooh, I'm getting too many elevations, right? And I could say, okay, and then this other one is going to focus there, right? I could also have some side elevations. I'm going to leave it there for the time being. I don't want to overdo it. But as you can see, you can build quite a lot of sections within a single file. It doesn't have to be just one at a time. But with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to leave it in the comments and I will do my best to answer it. If you liked the video, a like will be very much appreciated, maybe subscribing. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.